The first warning signs appeared within a week of the human departure. On Valoris Prime, the capital world of the Valori Empire, a series of alarms began sounding in the lower atmospheric processing stations. These massive machines had been built by human engineers over 2 centuries ago, and they were responsible for keeping the air on the planet clean and breathable. Chief Administrator Zeloth stood in the control room, staring at screens filled with error messages he did not understand. Around him, Valori technicians buzzed frantically, pressing buttons and pulling levers without any real understanding of what they were doing. "What is happening?" Zeloth demanded. "Why are the machines failing?" The lead technician, a young Valori named Crix, trembled as he answered. "The filtration systems require maintenance every 30 days, Administrator. The humans always perform this maintenance. We do not know how." "Then learn," Zeloth shouted. "Find the manuals, the instructions, anything." "We have searched, Administrator. The humans took everything with them. All the documentation, all the training materials, all the spare parts. There is nothing left." Zeloth felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. For the first time in his long life, he felt something that his species had almost forgotten how to feel. He felt fear. 300 miles above the planet's surface, a similar scene was playing out on Orbital Station Vareth, the largest space station in the galaxy. Its power systems, designed and maintained by human engineers, were beginning to fluctuate. The station's Valori commander had no idea what to do. The problems spread quickly. On the Krathani homeworld, the communication networks went silent. These networks had been built using human quantum relay technology, and they were protected by encryption codes that only human technicians possessed. When the last human engineer left, she had taken those codes with her. Now the Krathani were cut off from their colonies, their fleets, and each other. Queen Sithara, the same Krathani leader who had mocked Ambassador Carter in the council chamber, found herself unable to contact her own military commanders. Her scales had turned pale white, the color of fear. "How is this possible?" she hissed at her advisors. "We ruled the stars for 1,000 years before the humans came. Surely we can manage without them." But the truth was far more complicated. The Krathani had ruled the stars 1,000 years ago using technology that was now ancient and obsolete. Over the centuries, they had become dependent on human innovations without even realizing it. Their ships ran on human-designed engines. Their weapons used human-developed targeting systems. Their entire civilization was built on a foundation of human engineering. And now that foundation was gone. The Torvon faced their own disasters. Their mighty war fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, began to go dark, one ship at a time. The fusion cores that powered these vessels were human technology, licensed to the Torvon under treaties that had now been dissolved. Without human maintenance crews, the cores became unstable. Some ships lost power completely, drifting helplessly in the void. Others exploded, taking their crews with them. General Gorath, the same Torvon who had predicted humanity's doom, watched helplessly as his fleet crumbled around him. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Hammer of Torvon, as warning lights flashed on every console. "How long until our core fails?" he asked his chief engineer. "Perhaps 3 days," the engineer replied. "I do not have the knowledge to repair it." Gorath slammed his rocky fist against a wall, leaving a deep crack in the metal. 300 years we had to learn from the humans. 300 years, and we learned nothing. "We did not think we needed to learn," the engineer said quietly. "We thought they would always be there to serve us." The silence that followed was heavier than any words could have been. On the border of human space, Admiral Kevin Shaw stood on the bridge of the starship Endeavour, watching the last refugee ships cross into human territory. These were humans who had lived in council space their entire lives, finally coming home to a home they had never seen. "All personnel accounted for, Admiral," reported Commander Samantha Price. "Every human citizen has been evacuated." Kevin nodded slowly. He had served in the Council's military for 30 years, fighting their wars and protecting their interests. They all were. "Any response from the Council?" he asked. "Several urgent messages from Valoris Prime," Samantha replied. "They are demanding that we return immediately. They claim our departure is a violation of 17 different treaties." "Treaties they broke 100 times over," Kevin said. "Delete the messages." "Already done, sir." In the weeks that followed, the messages became more frequent and more desperate. The Valori demanded help with their failing atmospheric systems. The Chthoni begged for the communication codes. The Torvon offered anything, everything if human engineers would come repair their ships. Ambassador Marcus Webb received each message personally. He was an old man now, with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was still sharp. He read every desperate plea, every angry demand, every pathetic offer of reconciliation. His assistant, a young man named Christopher Lane, watched him carefully. "Should we respond, sir?" Christopher asked after yet another message arrived. Marcus set the tablet down and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations were collapsing. Billions of beings were suffering because their leaders had been too proud, too arrogant, to treat humanity with basic respect. "Not yet," Marcus replied. "Let them understand what silence truly means." Christopher nodded. "How long should we wait?" "As long as it takes for them to understand that we were never their servants. We were their partners, and they threw that partnership away for the pleasure of looking down on us." The young man was quiet for a moment. "Do you think they will ever understand?" Marcus turned back to his work, his face showing no emotion. "I do not know, but they will have plenty of time to think about it." Outside the window, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the suffering of those who lived among them. The humans had departed silently, and in their absence, the galaxy was learning a painful lesson about the true cost of contempt. The silence stretched on, day after day, week after week, and with each passing moment, the proud civilizations of the Galactic Council fell a little further into darkness. 1 year after the human departure, the Galactic Council no longer existed in any meaningful sense. The grand chamber where species had gathered for 10,000 years now sat empty and dark. The crystal walls were cracked, the star maps on the ceiling had gone black, and dust covered the speaking platform where Ambassador Daniel Carter had delivered humanity's final words. The collapse had happened faster than anyone could have predicted. Without human engineers to maintain the systems, without human diplomats to smooth over conflicts, without human workers to keep the economy running, everything fell apart. The Valori homeworld was dying. The atmospheric processors had failed completely 3 months after the humans left. Toxic gases now filled the lower levels of every major city. Millions of Valori had already died, and millions more were slowly suffocating in their own homes. The survivors huddled in sealed chambers, rationing the clean air that remained, knowing that each breath brought them closer to the end. High Speaker Verath had been one of the first to die. His lungs, already weakened by age, could not handle the poisoned air. His successor, a younger Valori named Seloth, had inherited nothing but chaos and despair. The Chthoni had descended into civil war. Without their communication networks, the various Chthoni factions could not coordinate with each other. Old grudges resurfaced, territorial disputes turned violent. The once unified Chthoni Empire splintered into dozens of warring states, each one fighting desperately for the resources needed to survive. A plague swept through their population, the same plague that human doctors had cured 200 years ago. But the humans had taken their medical knowledge with them, and the Chthoni had never bothered to learn how the cure worked. Now, the sickness spread unchecked, killing millions in a matter of weeks. Queen Sithara watched her people die and knew that she was powerless to stop it. Her scales had turned permanently gray, the color of despair. She no longer gave orders or made speeches. She simply sat in her throne room, staring at nothing, waiting for the end. The Torvon suffered a different fate. Their war fleet, once the most powerful military force in the galaxy, had been reduced to scrap metal. Without their ships, they could not defend their territories. Without their weapons, they could not intimidate their enemies. The Syndicate Raiders, a minor species that the Torvon had bullied for centuries, saw their opportunity. They attacked the Torvon colonies one by one, burning cities and enslaving survivors. General Gorath led the defense, but his forces were outnumbered and outgunned. Within 6 months, the Torvon homeworld had fallen. Gorath died fighting, as all Torvon warriors hoped to die. But there was no glory in his death, only the bitter knowledge that his people's arrogance had brought them to ruin. While the council species tore themselves apart, human civilization flourished in ways that no one had imagined possible. On the colony world of New Virginia, Governor Patricia Blake stood on the balcony of her office, looking out at a city that seemed to grow larger every day. New buildings rose toward the sky. Parks and gardens covered the spaces between them. Children played in the streets without fear. Her daughter, Nicole, joined her on the balcony. "The latest reports came in," Nicole said. "Agricultural production is up 40%. Industrial output has doubled. And the population growth rate is the highest it has been in 100 years. It seems we do quite well when we are not spending all our energy serving others." For 300 years, humanity had poured its resources into supporting the Galactic Council. Human scientists had worked on alien problems instead of human ones. Human builders had constructed alien cities, while human colonies remained underdeveloped. Human soldiers had fought alien wars, while human borders remained undefended. Now, for the first time in generations, humanity was investing in itself. Dr. Gregory Palmer stood before a crowd of scientists and journalists, preparing to make an announcement that would change everything. He was a thin man with messy hair and thick glasses, the kind of person who cared more about ideas than appearances. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I am pleased to announce that our team has successfully tested a new faster-than-light drive system. This engine is 10 times more efficient than anything currently in use. It will allow us to travel distances in days that previously took months." The crowd erupted in applause. Standing beside Gregory, his colleague Dr. Karen Mitchell waited for the noise to die down before making her own announcement. "Additionally," she said, "our Artificial Intelligence Research Division has achieved a major breakthrough. We have developed a new generation of AI systems that are smarter, faster, and more capable than anything the galaxy has ever seen. These systems will revolutionize every aspect of human life, from medicine to manufacturing to exploration." Back on New Virginia, Patricia Blake watched the announcement with quiet pride. She had always known that humanity was capable of greatness. They had simply been too busy lifting up others to realize their own potential. "They laughed at us," Nicole said softly. "They called us clever animals. They said we would not survive a generation without them." "I remember," Patricia replied. "How do you feel now, knowing what they are going through?" Patricia was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the millions of Valori choking on poisoned air. She thought about the Crethoni dying from a plague that humans could have cured. She thought about the Torvon refugees, homeless among the stars they had once ruled. "I feel sad," she finally said. "Not for their leaders who brought this upon themselves, but for the ordinary beings who are suffering because of their leaders' arrogance. Do you think we should help them?" Patricia shook her head slowly. "That is not my decision to make. The people will decide when the time comes. That is how we do things now." She turned away from the window and walked back into her office. There was work to be done, always more work to be done. But for the first time in a very long time, that work was for humanity's benefit, not someone else's. Outside, the sun set over New Virginia, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It was the same sun that had warmed human faces for millions of years, from the plains of Africa to the colonies among the stars. Humanity had come a long way. 3 years had passed since the day humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. 3 years of silence. 3 years of darkness for those who had been left behind. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the observation deck of Border Station Omega, watching the stars with tired eyes. He was a tall man, with broad shoulders and gray hair cut short in the military style. He had spent his entire adult life defending humanity's interests, first as a soldier in alien wars, now as the guardian of human space. Commander Michelle Torres approached him with a tablet in her hands. Her face showed the kind of concern that Nathan had learned to recognize over the years. "Admiral," she said quietly, "we have contacts approaching the border. Multiple vessels, moving slowly." Nathan took the tablet and studied the sensor readings. 17 ships, all of them shown significant damage. Their power signatures were weak, their life support systems barely functioning. They were not coming to fight. They were coming to beg. "Open a channel," Nathan ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a face that Nathan recognized immediately. It was High Speaker Zeloth, the current leader of the Valori. But the creature on the screen looked nothing like the proud alien Nathan remembered from intelligence briefings. His wings were torn and dull. His eyes were sunken. His voice, when he spoke, was barely a whisper. "Human vessels," Zeloth said. "We come seeking an audience. We come in peace. We come because we have no other choice." Nathan studied the alien for a long moment before responding. "High Speaker Zeloth, I remember watching recordings of your predecessor laughing at our ambassador in the council chamber. I remember being told that humanity would not survive a generation without your guidance." Zeloth lowered his head in what might have been shame. "We were wrong," he admitted. "We were fools. We did not understand what we had until it was gone. And now you come to us. What do you want?" "Help," Zeloth said simply. "Our world is dying. Our people are dying. We have tried everything we know, and it is not enough. We beg you, in the name of whatever mercy your species possesses, help us." Nathan was quiet for a long time. Behind him, Michelle shifted uncomfortably. "I do not have the authority to grant your request," Nathan finally said. "I will pass your message to our government. They will decide." "Thank you," Zeloth whispered. "Thank you." The screen went dark, and Nathan turned to face his crew. Every eye in the room was fixed on him, waiting to see how he would react. "Escort their vessels to a holding area," he ordered. "Provide them with food, water, and medical supplies. But keep them outside our borders until we receive further instructions." "Yes, Admiral," Michelle replied. "And the instructions? I will contact Earth personally. This decision is too important to trust to a message drone." On Earth, the human homeworld, the government had changed in ways that would have shocked the old Galactic Council. There were no kings or emperors here, no high speakers or supreme rulers. Instead, decisions were made by the people themselves, through a system of direct voting that allowed every citizen to have their say. The question of whether to help the former council species was put to a global vote. For 3 days, humanity debated the issue. Arguments were made on both sides, passionate and heartfelt. Some said that humanity should turn their backs on the aliens, just as the aliens had turned their backs on humanity. Let them suffer the consequences of their arrogance. Let them learn what it meant to be alone in the universe. Others argued that humanity's strength came from their compassion, not their hatred. That helping others, even those who had wronged them, was what made humans truly human. That refusing to help would make them no better than the creatures who had oppressed them for 3 centuries. In the end, the vote was close, but the decision was clear. Humanity would help. Paul Henderson was chosen to deliver the response. He was an ordinary man, a former factory worker from Detroit who had been elected to speak for his community. He stood before a camera that would broadcast his words across the stars to the desperate aliens waiting at the border. "We have heard your plea," Paul said, his voice steady and calm. "We have debated among ourselves, as free people do, and we have reached a decision." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We remember what you did to us. We remember 300 years of service, repaid with contempt. We remember being laughed at, dismissed, treated as animals. We remember the day our ambassador was mocked in your council chamber. We remember all of it." The aliens watching the broadcast held their breath, certain that the humans would refuse them, certain that this was the end. "But we also remember who we are," Paul continued. "We are human, and humans help those in need, even those who do not deserve it." He looked directly into the camera, his eyes hard but not cruel. "We will help you, but things will be different now. We will not serve you. We will not bow to you. We will help you as equals, or not at all. These are our terms. Accept them or leave." On the Valori flagship, High Speaker Zeloth collapsed to his knees. Tears streamed from his compound eyes, a display of emotion that his species rarely showed. "We accept," he whispered. "We accept everything." "Thank you." Beside him, the Krathani representative, a scarred female named Vessa who had survived the civil wars and the plague, bowed her head in gratitude. The Torvan survivors, refugees from a shattered world, stood in silence, too stunned to speak. Admiral Nathan Cole received the news from Earth and immediately began preparations. Ships were readied. Supply convoys were organized. Medical teams were assembled. Commander Michelle Torres approached him as he reviewed the plans. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" she asked. Nathan looked up at her with tired eyes. "I do not know," he admitted. "They hurt us. They humiliated us. Part of me wants to let them suffer." "But," she pressed, "but my grandmother used to tell me something when I was young. She said that anyone can be kind to their friends. It takes real strength to be kind to your enemies." He turned back to his work, his decision made. "We are not doing this for them," he said quietly. "We are doing this for us, to prove that we are better than what they tried to make us, to prove that we deserve to be among the stars." Michelle nodded slowly. "Then let us show them what humanity truly is." Outside the station, the first human ships began crossing the border, carrying hope to those who had long since stopped hoping. The reckoning had come, and with it, a chance for something new. The first human ships entered Council space on a cold morning in December, exactly 4 years after Ambassador Daniel Carter had walked out of the Great Hall for the last time. But these were not the old ships that had once served alien masters. These were vessels built by humanity for humanity, sleek and powerful, carrying technology that made the old Council ships look like ancient relics. Engineer Stephanie Walsh stood at the controls of her repair shuttle, looking down at the dying world of Valoris Prime. The atmosphere was thick with toxic clouds, and the cities below were dark and silent. Millions of Valori had already perished, and millions more clung to life in sealed shelters, waiting for salvation. Beginning atmospheric restoration procedures, Stephanie reported to her team. Deploy the filtration drones. Thousands of small machines launched from the human ships, spreading across the planet like seeds in the wind. Each drone carried advanced air purification technology that had been developed in human labs over the past 3 years. Within hours, the skies above Valoris Prime began to clear for the first time in months. In the shelters below, Valori survivors watched in disbelief as clean air began flowing through their ventilation systems. Children who had never known what it felt like to breathe freely took their first deep breaths. Old warriors who had prepared themselves for death found themselves crying with relief. High Speaker Zeloth stood in the command center of the largest shelter, watching the human ships work. Beside him stood a human officer, a young woman named Grace Bennett, who had been assigned as liaison to the Valori government. "How long until the atmosphere is fully restored?" Zeloth asked. "Approximately 3 months," Grace replied. "Our drones will continue working around the clock. Once the air is stable, we can begin rebuilding your infrastructure." Zeloth turned to face her, his compound eyes filled with an emotion that humans might have called gratitude. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "After everything we did to your people, after the way we treated you, why would you help us?" Grace was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "Because we can," she finally said. "Because it is the right thing to do. And because we refuse to become the things we hated. We will not let your cruelty define us." On the Krathani homeworld, a different kind of rescue was underway. Dr. Christopher Dunn led a team of human doctors through the crowded refugee camps, distributing vaccines and treatments to the plague survivors. The disease that had killed millions had been stopped in its tracks within weeks of the humans' arrival. Vesa, the Krathani leader who had survived the civil wars, walked beside Christopher as he worked. "Our greatest scientists studied this plague for months," she said, her scales shifting through shades of blue and gray. "They could not find a cure. Your doctors solved the problem in days." "We already had the cure," Christopher explained. "Human doctors developed it 200 years ago when this same plague threatened your ancestors. We simply still had the records." Vesa hissed softly, a sound that expressed both shame and wonder. "We never learned," she admitted. "We took your help for granted. We assumed you would always be there to solve our problems. We never bothered to understand how you did it." Christopher stopped walking and turned to face her. "That is going to change," he said firmly. "We are not here to serve you. We are here to teach you. From now on, your people will learn alongside ours. You will understand your own technology. You will solve your own problems. We will help you become self-sufficient, not dependent." Vesa nodded slowly. A harder path, but a better one. The Torvan refugees presented the greatest challenge. Their homeworld was gone, conquered by enemies who had once feared them. Their proud warrior culture had been shattered. Many of them had given up hope entirely, seeing no future for themselves or their children. Project manager Linda Foster was assigned to oversee the construction of new settlements for the Torvan survivors. She was a practical woman who had spent her career building things, and she approached the problem with the same attitude she applied to everything else. "We are going to build you a new home," she told the Torvan elders at their first meeting. "But we are going to build it together. Your people will work alongside ours. You will learn new skills. You will find new purposes." One of the elders, an ancient Torvan named Gorvin, rumbled in confusion. "We are warriors," he said. "We do not know how to build. We only know how to destroy." Linda smiled. "Then you will learn. Everyone can learn if they are willing to try." It took time. There were setbacks and failures, moments when old prejudices flared up and threatened to destroy the fragile peace. But slowly, day by day, the work continued. A new assembly was formed, not on Valoris Prime, but on a human space station called Haven that had been built specifically for this purpose. Representatives from every surviving species gathered in a chamber that was deliberately simple, with no high seats or special positions. Everyone sat at the same level. Everyone had an equal voice. Ambassador Daniel Carter, older now with silver in his hair, took his seat alongside the alien delegates who had once laughed at him. He looked around the room at faces that showed fear, hope, shame, and determination in equal measure. "We are gathered here to create something new," Daniel said. "Not a council of masters and servants, but an assembly of equals. Every species will have a voice. Every species will be heard. No one will be dismissed or mocked or treated as lesser." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We will not forget the past. We cannot, but we can choose to move beyond it. We can choose to be better than our history. We can choose to build a future worthy of all our peoples." High Speaker Zeloth rose to speak, his wings still scarred, but healing. "The Valori accept these terms," he said quietly. "We accept them with humility and gratitude. We have learned, at terrible cost, the value of what we threw away. We will not make the same mistake again." One by one, the other species added their voices. The Krathani, the Torvan, dozens of others who had survived the collapse and found their way to this new beginning. When the speeches were finished, Daniel Carter looked out the window at the stars that surrounded the station. Somewhere out there, human colonies were thriving. Human ships were exploring new frontiers. Human scientists were unlocking secrets that had been hidden since the beginning of time. And here, in this small chamber, something extraordinary was happening. Former enemies were becoming partners. Old wounds were beginning to heal. A new chapter in galactic history was being written. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "Let us begin," he said. And they did. Years later, historians would write about this moment. They would describe it as the turning point, the day when the galaxy finally learned the lesson that humanity had been trying to teach all along. True strength is not about dominance. It is about the courage to walk away when you are being mistreated, and the compassion to return when you are needed. It is about knowing your own worth and recognizing the worth of others. Humanity had departed silently, and in their absence, the galaxy had finally learned to listen. Now, together, they would build something better, something that would last. The stars shone on, as they always had, watching over the small creatures who lived among them. And for the first time in a very long time, those creatures were working together, reaching toward a future that belonged to everyone. This was the new order. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. And it was only the beginning. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its walls were made of crystal that had been mined from the hearts of dead stars. Its ceiling showed the live images of 1,000 different worlds spinning slowly in the void. Every important decision in the galaxy had been made in this room for the last 10,000 years. Daniel Carter walked through the massive doors with slow and steady steps. He wore the simple gray uniform of a human ambassador, with no medals or decorations. Behind him walked his aide, a young woman named Lisa Monroe, who carried a small tablet computer in her hands. Her face showed no emotion, just like her mentor had taught her. The council chamber was full today. Representatives from over 200 species sat in their assigned sections, arranged in a great circle around the central speaking platform. The Valori delegation occupied the highest seats, as they always did. Their insectoid bodies gleamed under the artificial lights, and their wings buzzed softly with anticipation. They had ruled this council for 3,000 years, and they had never let anyone forget it. Below them sat the Krathani, serpentine creatures with scales that shifted color based on their moods. Right now their scales were bright red, the color of amusement. Next to them were the Torvan, massive beings made of living rock, their faces permanently frozen in expressions of contempt. Daniel stepped onto the central platform and waited. The noise in the chamber slowly died down as the various species turned their attention to the lone human standing before them. High Speaker Verith, the leader of the Valori delegation, clicked his mandibles together in a sound that translated roughly as laughter. He was old, even by Valori standards. and he had spent his entire life looking down on younger species. "The human wishes to speak," Verath announced to the chamber. "How amusing. Let us hear what complaints they bring us today." More laughter rippled through the room. Daniel waited patiently for it to stop. For 300 years, humanity had served the Galactic Council faithfully. When the Valori needed new space stations built, human engineers designed and constructed them. When the Crethani faced a deadly plague, human doctors developed the cure. When the Torvan went to war against the Syndicate raiders, human soldiers fought and died alongside them. In return, humanity had received very little. They were given the worst trade agreements, the smallest territories, and the least respect. They were seen as useful workers, nothing more. Clever animals who could follow instructions and operate machinery. The new taxation laws had been the final insult. Under these laws, human colonies would be forced to give up 70% of everything they produced. Their people would work themselves to exhaustion just to survive, while alien species grew fat on the fruits of human labor. Daniel had come to the council 3 times before to protest these laws. Each time, he had been dismissed without a hearing. Today would be different. "High Speaker," Daniel said, his voice calm and clear, "I come before this council one final time." "Final time?" Verath clicked his mandibles again. "Have you finally accepted your place in the natural order of things?" "In a manner of speaking," Daniel replied. He gestured to Lisa, who stepped forward and handed him the tablet. Daniel looked at it for a moment, then looked up at the assembled delegates. 300 years ago, humanity joined this council with hope in our hearts. We believed that we could be partners with the other species of this galaxy. We believed that our hard work and dedication would earn us respect and equality. He paused, letting his words sink in. We were wrong. The laughter died down slightly. Some of the delegates leaned forward in their seats, curious about where this speech was going. "We have built your stations," Daniel continued. "We have healed your sick. We have fought your wars. We have given you everything we had to give. And in return, we have received nothing but contempt." High Speaker Verath waved one of his segmented limbs dismissively. "You received protection. You received access to our technology. You received the privilege of serving greater species than yourselves. What more could you possibly want?" "Nothing," Daniel said simply. "We want nothing more from you." He held up the tablet so that everyone could see it. This document contains the formal notice of humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, all human citizens, assets, and technology will be removed from Council space. Within 90 standard days, there will be no human presence anywhere in your territories. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the laughter began again, louder than before. The Crethani representative, a female named Sithara, slithered forward in her seat. Her scales were bright orange now, the color of mockery. "You cannot be serious," she hissed. "Where would you go? What would you do? You are nothing without the Council's guidance." The Torvan delegate, a massive creature named Gorath, rumbled in agreement. "The humans have lost their minds. They would not survive a single generation without our protection." High Speaker Verath rose from his seat, his wings spreading wide in a display of dominance. "Let me be very clear, Ambassador Carter. If humanity leaves this council, you will never be allowed to return. You will be cut off from all trade, all communication, all contact with civilized space. You will wither and die in whatever corner of the galaxy you choose to hide in." Daniel looked up at the towering alien without fear. "We understand," he said quietly. "We accept those terms." He turned and began walking toward the exit. Lisa fell into step beside him. "You are making a terrible mistake," Verath called after them. "You will regret this decision." Daniel stopped at the doorway and looked back over his shoulder. "Perhaps," he said, "but it will be our mistake to make. For the first time in 300 years, our fate will be in our own hands." He walked out of the chamber without another word. Behind him, The laughter continued, echoing off the crystal walls. The delegates returned to their normal business, already forgetting about the strange human who had made such ridiculous threats. They had more important matters to discuss. The humans would come crawling back within a month, begging for forgiveness. They always did. But the days passed, and the humans did not return. Instead, ships began arriving at every human settlement in Council space. Families packed their belongings. Engineers shut down their equipment. Soldiers boarded transports and headed for the border. On the 90th day, the last human vessel crossed out of Council territory. Its captain, a woman named Rachel Porter, looked back at the stars she was leaving behind. "Good luck," she whispered to no one in particular. "You are going to need it." The humans departed silently, just as they had promised, and the galaxy would never be the same again.